in case you're watching on YouTube or online or social media, I want to go through some bullet points and I want you to break it down, Reese. One of the great things they said on the call yesterday, Win with Black Men, is inform people. Let them know when you're at the barbershop or at church or with your boys or whatever. If they have some of these one liners, that it fits cute in a bad social media misinformation meme. But let's give them some information if they're talking to people, because I believe word of mouth is so important that we could correct the record, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you are the expert in that. So I'm going to go through a few key things, and I want you to just sound off on it, break it down, make it plain. So, Reese, when someone says Kamala Harris locked up black men, give us the actual information around that.
First of all, that's as you would say, Clay, a Jim Crow lie, right?
Yes.
I have to first say that it preys on the white supremacist idea that black people are innately criminal. So people without question believe that all these black men are in jail, all these black people are locked up, like all these black men were just hanging around smoking weed. When black men, for instance, to be clear, are not disproportionately more likely to smoke weed. Okay, so there's that. This notion that you just have all these black men doing nothing, hanging out on the corner, and Vice President Kamala Harris was rolling around in her Corolla, locking up, rounding up black men. No. The reality around it is that when Vice President Kamala Harris was the district attorney of San Francisco, she did not prosecute marijuana possession, simple marijuana possession. Her record in terms of the number of people that went to jail around marijuana charges. Mind you, this would have been sales and things like that. If you're a drug dealer, okay, maybe you went to jail, but it was 40% lower than her predecessor. Only 44 people went to state prison around marijuana charges. But what a lot of people don't know is that she actually created the first of its kind back on track program, which was about, it was a diversion program and also expunged records of
Targeted
the
the black men.
targeted.
Folks like it very specific. That's what back on track was. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just want to point that
Yes.
out. Folks like that
No,
specifics.
no, you're right. It was
Right.
Black and Latino men, and it these were people who were facing 20 years for 2 grams of crack. Okay. People just talk about marijuana, but there's all kind of drugs out there. The white prosecutors in her office, mind you, she's the head honcho, but she had obstruction from people within her office. They called it, and her opponents called it back on crack. Okay. So people act like we just live in such a utopian progressive
So
society.
hateful.
They were calling her program back on track, which was about reducing recidivism, which means returning into jail, repeat offenders, which was about reducing recidivism and getting Black men, Latino men job training, getting them parenting classes, dental work. VP was actually in her Rolodex getting people jobs at department stores. Personally, this was the level of engagement that she had on this program. And that's work that she continued when she became the Attorney General, when she created the Division of Recidivism Reduction and Reentry, DR3. This was something that President Obama, his DOG, called it a model for the country. And so she has actually done more work on trying to keep people out of prison in terms of trying to reduce the recidivism rate. Is something that you hear her talk about all the time if you look at old clips, than about locking people up. But what also people don't understand is that, she actually paid more attention to Black victims of crime. Hello, Black people don't want their crimes to go unsolved. Black people don't want to be terrorized in their communities either. And so when there was a backlog of well over, I don't have a number handy now, but it was either 100 or 70 something cases, unsolved homicides, she made it a priority to get justice for those victims. So I think we have to look at her record and the actual facts and not just the narratives around, which are not true. That people say thousands, tens of thousands, 20,000, 30,000. They just make up number. I've even heard some people say millions of Black men have been locked up for weed, or she's locked up millions of Black men. How lowly do you think of Black people to think that there are even millions of Black men out of the proportion of Black people in California to even be locked up. Like, be for real. And then the one more thing I would say about this, because people don't understand that one of the things that she did as district attorney was they have this thing called neighborhood courts in San Francisco. She expanded the neighborhood courts to 12 neighborhood courts when she was district attorney. So this is where your people in your community, it's like basically like a neighborhood tribunal. So this was cases that were low level. Instead of going through the judicial process, they were dispositioned by people within your neighborhood council. And usually the punishment was something along the lines of, community service or something like that. And so if you look at her record, it was not about locking up as many people as possible. It was about solving the root causes of crime. It was about getting victims support. And it was about getting people back on track when they were let out of jail so that they don't recidivate.
And I want to say, if you want to look at prosecutors who locked up black men, because I've covered this a lot with my Exonerated series, look up Roger King in Philadelphia, who was a black prosecutor who waged war on young black people in
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia. Look that up. That is not Vice President Kamala Harris. So I appreciate that. Okay, another one that we hear: Kamala Harris locked up black mothers with anti-truancy laws. Break that down.
Okay, so first of all, that's not true. Kamala Harris did not lock up nor prosecute Black mothers or any parent for truancy. Okay. Let's just go back a little bit. First of all, truancy has been on the books has been against the law in California since the 60s. Okay. So she did not create the idea of criminalizing truancy. It was already there. What she said is, okay, we have these books on the law. Why don't we use them as a tool to get people to bring their elementary school students to school? Okay. She looked at the victims of homicide. The victims of homicide were largely, mostly, people who were truant from school, people who had dropped out of school, people who were missing a lot of school. And so this is where I goes to the root cause. Now, if you want to quibble with the fact that she threatened people with jail, okay, that's fine. Don't vote for her. Go vote for the 34-time convicted criminal, who is all about locking Black people up. Okay. But that's fine. But the reality is that nobody was prosecuted when she was district attorney under this. What she actually did was she got resources because of these letters. And she sent a letter saying, your child has missed school and it's against the law and da 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 da. She was able to get help. One story in particular was a mother who did not have transportation. She did not have. She wasn't making enough money, and so Vice President Kamala Harris, then DA, her office helped get her access to transportation so that her students, her children, could go to school. And so she actually did reduce the truancy rate. I believe the number was 25% or something along those lines, without actually prosecuting anybody. And there was a hit piece that was done on her, in Huffington Post, which is, I debunked this many years ago, where they took a case that exists. They took first of all, DAs have the ability to prosecute anybody. Okay. So, like I said, it had already been a crime. They took an anti gang initiative that this particular district attorney had set forth. And under that anti gang initiative, they were going after parents of truant children, right? And so, yes, there was a woman, Cherie Peoples is her name, who was caught up in this. That initiative had nothing to do with Vice President Kamala Harris. It was related to that DA's anti-gang initiative. Now, I'm not going to be a victim blamer. She didn't want to do parenting classes, and so she had this long legal fight. But they tried to attach her story to Vice President Kamala Harris when this was their own DA. They had their own initiative that was not related to any kind of thing that Vice President Kamala Harris went on. And then the other thing I would say on the topic of this truancy is there was a 2010 law that changed. Arnold Schwarzenegger put it in place when VP was the
Former governor
age.
of California, in case
Arnold,
folks
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
He was
people
former
may not
governor.
know. Sure, he not terminated. He was a governor. Um, he there was a law that was put in place. So when VP was the Attorney General of California, she had a anti-truancy toolkit. She tried to standardize the process. And so one of the things in this hit piece for HuffPost was to say there were um there were cases that were tried under it. But when you look at the evidence, the most punitive, these are jurisdictions that were already very tough on truancy in terms of prosecutions. The most punitive districts before the law went into place, the new 2010 law, actually saw their truancy prosecutions go down after the 2010 law. And so that to me shows obviously there were good reforms that Vice President Kamala Harris, then Attorney General, ushered in when you saw less punitive measures being taken, less prosecutions, and you actually saw more help going to parents. So just to sum it up, no, Kamala Harris did not prosecute. She did not lock up Black mothers. Again, why are we putting Black on it anyway? When you're talking about
Exactly.
truancy, but okay,
Exactly.
she did not do that. Period.
All right, so a few more. We'll head to a break, and these are some of the ones that are outside of the record. Kamala said America isn't a racist country.
Oh.
How dare she?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you want, it's the same thing kind of if you want black, black, neon black, then that's fine. If that's your criteria, if you want a person who is the vice president of the United States or the president of the United States to say, um, America is a racist country, period, then I'm sorry. That's not, she didn't say that, but she clearly has articulated, and even in that
The
statement,
next sentence,
the
when
next
she said the
sentence,
next sentence, she laid out racism in America.
yeah, she's laid out systemic
I should have brought
racism.
that clip up. Yeah.
Yeah, she obviously understands and has tackled systemic racism in this country, racial disparities that exist in every aspect from how we perceive healthcare to housing, redlining to education, all kinds of things. And so the idea that because she didn't give somebody a soundbite that she is a naive or ignorant to the racism of this country, it's just stupid. And I remember during her 2019 campaign, she was in Iowa talking about like, yeah, America has, was we are still dealing with the vestiges of slavery, of Jim Crow, and talking to white folks about racism in America. Okay, she didn't have a different speech about racism in Iowa than she did in South Carolina. And so I think I know she's a person who deeply understands how racism has impacted this country, still impacts it. And if you want a soundbite person, then I don't know what to tell you, but she's not that girl, but she understands the assignment when it
And I
comes
want to also
to
point
tackling
out
it.
that question was asked to every sitting senator at the time. Bernie Sanders didn't say it was a racist country. Pete Buttigieg didn't say it. Cory Booker didn't say it.
Mm-hmm.
None of them said that. You're not going to have a sitting senator say that, y'all. That's just not gonna happen. So, but and then also that narrative was started by Tim Scott.
Yeah.
Gave a speech and he said America isn't a racist country. And they would ask any black Democrat that question: do you think America's a racist country? Tim Scott said it isn't. So it was an interesting black Republican talking point grift.
Yeah, but do
Okay,
you want
last
a
one, and I've been
soundbite or do you want substance? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for
exactly. Or
substance,
do you
not
want
sound
policy?
bites.